Welcome back. Okay, so we're gonna go through some more evidence. Hopefully you've been watching my previous videos. They're basically all about how the Earth expanded and doesn't function under plate tectonics. Just for quick reference, we're talking about South America region lately, which was adjacent to Australia and North America like this, possibly with New Zealand somewhere in here. Undetermined yet exactly its proximity to us all, possibly down there in this region, but possibly up here also even, I'm not completely sure. So there's that. There's this, so that was Australia, eastern coast. This is the western side of Australia, where Sulawesi, Papua New Guinea, North Maluku, Philippines, and Borneo were all along this side, with North America connected over there, like so. So we've just been going through evidence in the Pacific lately. We've been going through large igneous provinces. We looked in Ecuador, some in the northern Andes up here. We looked in this region and found some interesting stuff relating to large igneous provinces. And this is where the secondary mantle puncture hole is here. So the general principle is, or concept, whatever you want to call it, is that the mantle itself was punctured in Pakistan at this location here, and an undercurrent below the crust flowed below the crust while the continents were still conjoined as a single landmass. That built up pressure below the crust until it basically severed, and a big part of that process was the forming of, by the collision of these currents flowing out in all directions, colliding at certain points, which then built mounds of material that are then large igneous provinces that wedged open the continents from one another. Sorry if you can hear some background noise. It is what it is. Hugs. I just felt like recording. It's been like 5 days, so I just figured I should record. I got like 3 episodes of content, 4 or 5, maybe even 5 if I really go through everything I could go through since my last episode. So that was the primary mantle puncture hole, and the currents flowed out in all directions, and like a soda bottle that was like had currents flowing out of it. It was squeezing and like needed another hole in the bottle to allow for exchange. So it literally punctured the mantle again by the undercurrents atop the crust, this time over here, which was adjacent to Australia, which is where the angel formed. So if we go to this angel structure right here was in where the secondary mantle puncture hole was. We recently found Manihiki Plateau over here, which Ontong Java Plateau was over here, and Hikarangi Plateau down here were all actually one. And this angel structure kind of like bloomed outward and shoved them apart, severed them by this trident structure at the top, and pushed down the Hikarangi Plateau from up there, which is one of the reasons I think New Zealand was probably actually up over in this region. Uncertain though, I'm not sure. But we also saw some of the Ontong Java Plateau, Manihiki Plateau materials were in Ecuador, and other things with that specific formation. I think it's called the Pinon Formation in Ecuador that is over here now, and some models in plate tectonics say it moved all the way across the ocean basically to converge over here, but the reality is other papers point out that it didn't move, at least not substantially. Maybe like in alternative perceptions, maybe it moved from closer, but the gist of it is that it couldn't have moved from that far away, and the reason that is because the Earth expanded and doesn't actually function under plate tectonics. So more recently, though, we've been looking at how this angel structure, again here, has this, that's not the angel, has this like flame, which I don't draw here, but like right here, that essentially comes out of here. There's currents going in the trident this way, out of this like figure 8 structure, but then there's also currents going downward in like a flame-like structure that went into South America along the western coast and essentially cut the continents apart. Definitely contributed to the severing of adjacent continents of Australia, South America, possibly some portion of Antarctica as well, and drilled in at certain locations there. Seemingly there, as we'll kind of get into as well, like right there is kind of what I'm thinking, or maybe there even, around here. Did something here, it did something here, and then it really got caught up on this location, which was directly from the mantle puncture hole over here, like straight down to there, where it kind of stopped. So we're going to look at some more evidence I found on the matter. Real quick, let's just start. Check out these clips. This is
north-northeast, south-southwest. The slip vector for
Sam Wimpenny, Dr. Sam Wimpenny, discussing the Andes. This is a clip I took. Okay.
North-northeast, south-southwest. The slip vector for this earthquake is north-northeast, south-southwest. And that's obviously very much rotated from...
It might be beneficial if to do this. I pause this real quick. And maybe turn this up over here.
The north-northeast, south-southwest. The slip vector for this earthquake is north-northeast, south-southwest. And that's obviously...
So he's basically just talking about the angles of these faults.
Very much rotated from the roughly east-west slip vectors on the reverse faulting earthquakes here. And is also rotated relative to the earthquakes that further southeast along the subandean fault thrust belt. So if we move along strike, we can see that the slip vectors rotate. So here we've got north-northeast, south-southwest shortening. Here it's roughly northeast-southwest. Here it's roughly northeast-southwest. And over here, down south of Santa Cruz, it's roughly east-west. So what we can see is that there's really quite significant along strike variability in the way that the high part of the mountain range is deforming and the way that the margins of the mountain range are deforming. And in particular, what's kind of previously not really been appreciated is the fact that the shortening on the eastern margin of the Andes is essentially perpendicular to the strike of the mountain belt. So it's parallel to gradients in topography in these regions. It's not parallel to the Nazca South America relative plate motion. The north-northeast, south-south high region of the Altiplano and its margins, the South American forelands and the trench down here, that are really controlling the orientation of the extension in the high ground and the shortening within the low ground along its margins. It's not necessarily parallel to the directions of relative plate motions in this region. High region of the Altiplano and its margins, the South American forelands.
Okay, so let me go back there. Go back there. Okay. So the point is in plate tectonics, the Nazca plate. If we just pull this up. is generally believed to be just kind of moving underneath South America. But if it's inducing the Andes as is interpreted, if all the Andes are generally a function of this plate sliding under South America, which is what plate tectonics claims, then it's anomalous that this region here that he was saying is not a function of that direction. It's actually the direction of shortening, like the squishing of the terrain, is not in the direction the plate is moving. It's actually off of that direction. So it doesn't really make sense for plate tectonics. I just thought I'd note it. So there's that. Not parallel to the Nazca South America relative plate motion. Okay, then that was one talk I found. I'll link all these videos, the full video of this, This one was like 3.5 hours, like 6 presenters. I think it was this one. Yeah, 3.5 hours, 6 presenters, and I guess I should. I won't play it. I'll just read it. So I won't play it, but I'll link this Twitter threads if anyone wants to check out the video, because I basically clipped essentially every slide from her presentation after this one. At least she started a bit earlier. She started at like 1:12, 1:13. This is Carmela. Her name is somewhere in here. Carmela Garzion is the presenter of this information. This is her research, so she's just presenting her technical paper research. So it's not like it's like it's not like it's like how the Earth is made or something that I'm basing why this is of interest on. Okay, so I said I found a nice long talk on the Central Andes. Many talks, really. Lots of info, such as that the lower crust has been removed in regions associated with highest elevations and greatest magnitude of crustal thickening. And I just said undercurrent evidence. So mind you, as I was saying, all these undercurrents are flowing below the crust. And they're converging in the region west of South America, where Australia, North America, and South America separated. They're basically converging first under Australia itself, I believe, producing the ammonite structure here under Australia, but then they end up converging more under the boundary between what would end up being the boundary between them, which is again here. They end up converging like here in this region, which leads to the angel structure. Okay, so that angel structure then puts an undercurrent below South America. So we're just going to look at some information on the area and see if it kind of like resembles the process that I'm describing. And it does. So large step in the Moho beneath the eastern Cordillera, suggesting that lower crust has been removed. It's kind of odd in like a plate tectonics framework. I guess it kind of works because there's this plate of the Nazca plate sliding underneath, so it's like scraping some of the material in some way, removing some of the material, and removing it. But it's probably very like localized into specific regions. I believe it's these regions of the blue regions. this region is associated with the highest elevations and greatest magnitude of crustal thickening. So imagine there's all these currents colliding. They're producing a figure 8 flow, which I show in my Earth's Undercurrents video, which I took a picture of somewhere back here. I don't know if it's probably past it now. Here, this one. They're converging here, producing jet streams up here, which accretes material into western North America, known as Baja, BC. And then it differentiates material here and puts a jet of material that's South America was here into South America, and then like starts to separate the continents apart as the Earth expands. But it's going underneath the crust, so it's adding material, so it's thickening, and B, it's removing material, so it's causing lower crust to be removed. So it's doing both of these things in a high enough magnitude in this location, because it's a highly energetic location where like major streams of energy are being focused, that it thickens the crust in a way that's detectable, as well as detectably removes lower crust. So I thought that was undercurrent evidence. And if we look at the next slide, the case for lower crustal flow, I just was like, so you're saying the case for undercurrents? Undercurrents. Next slide, crustal thickness map. And A here, this is A, which is this cross section, A to A naught or whatever, A thing. I forget what the asterisk is termed in A2, whatever. Point is, this is a cross section across this line. Okay, so northern Altiplano, which is this region, between this mountain chain over here, the Western Andes, the Western Cordillera of the Andes, and then the Eastern Cordillera, are these two regions. So the Andes actually have a western and an eastern, with a basin region between called the Altiplano in this region specifically, where there's a basin here. Okay, so is associated with a mid-crustal low-velocity zone, and this is inferred to be a region of partial melt, potentially crustal material that is capable of flowing, which is a direct quote, not from the slide, but from her words. So again, an undercurrent. I just said, did someone say undercurrents? Here, simultaneous crustal thickening and surface uplift. So again, another thing I didn't mention with this undercurrent. Imagine there's crust and then there's an undercurrent, kind of like a hedgehog or some kind of thing digging in the dirt underneath the surface. It's gonna create like a mound above it as it moves. It's gonna uplift the terrain above it. And an undercurrent is flowing, pushing up by its physical pressure, like pushing through the space. It pushes up the crust above because it's so much current in this location. It's able to actually uplift substantially the Andes. It's kind of how I see that. So these things all fit with what I've been saying in a really, I would say, a profound way, honestly. Sorry if that's loud. If you don't know what I'm even talking about, sorry that I'm drawing attention to something that makes no sense. My parents are watching a movie, and they have it pretty damn loud. Simultaneous crustal thickening and surface uplift implicate crustal flow, though. Undercurrent, again. This one I found opposite, so if you imagine there's a current coming down this way. It's going down this way. And it reaches, and it pushes into the boundary as it goes. Then it would, like a hedgehog digging under the dirt, it would create a mound with its motion, at first glance at least, in a way where there would be a north to south propagation of uplift is basically what I'm getting at. So this says the altiplano rapid surface uplift propagates from south to north. So I just said this is certainly anomalous in terms of what I would expect at a glance, indicating some unaccounted for details. So there's something that I haven't realized in the process that this is pointing to are present and highlighted in the region. Like, this region really sheds light onto the fact that I'm not accounting for such mechanisms, say. And my initial statement was perhaps related to current interactions from below Antarctica or Africa reaching the area. So there's currents, not just from there, but there's also currents. So from the primary mantle puncture hole over here, going down along basically the East African Rift region, which then flows into Antarctica, through it, through this way, which is over here before they separate, and then into here, but it's also like flowing out this way as the Earth starts to expand. So it's possible that that is interacting with this other current and creating like an uplift south to north. There's also the same general current East African Rift that doesn't go into Antarctica, but goes more westward and into basically the southern tip of South America and bends this way up here and wraps around here to pretty much here, where a current flowing this way goes into like this flame structure here, but it seems to run into resistance of this other current around this region over here particularly, making this wall structure of a high magnetic intensity anomaly over here as like a physical barrier between the current flowing through from this direction eastward into Africa that goes up into northern Africa, and a current going that's running into, basically, and forcing this current downward and interacting with to create the East African Rift. But then that current continues into South America and bends probably along the boundary of this current going into through Antarctica and into Australia, kind of holding a firm boundary that makes this not really get into there, so it bends around. So it's possible one of those is at play, but it's also possible it's not really necessarily related to those directly so much as I put here. Depending on additional details, it could also be the result of current flows from the secondary mantle puncture hole, so from the location we've been talking about, this angel structure that ran into resistance below South America. So imagine this undercurrent is flowing, but it's more able to flow through this region until it runs into resistance of the other currents over here, and then it starts to build up like material, creating uplift, and then build up more material backward, creating like a south to north propagation of the uplift. So there's possibilities of what might be going on with that. I just noted it because I don't want to just like only note things that support everything I've said. Like it's not like it disproves what I'm saying. It's just that it sheds light on some nuances. That's how it goes. Because this is spot on. Like, generally speaking, the Earth expanded, and it did so by undercurrents from Pakistan. Below the crust, there's a secondary mantle puncture hole. All these things happened. It's just the details still are like fuzzy of the process as a whole. Okay, so evidence for undercurrents is strong in the Andes. Evidence for, they say, convective removal, so something more like from the deep mantle, convective, like plate tectonics kind of idea. But really it's undercurrents that are coming from the mantle, but all the way in Pakistan and then flowing underneath the crust all the way to South America, and then inducing these effects there because that's where the pressure buildup was, that then created these like jet streams through the region that ran into resistance enough to create these effects. So lower crust removal, this one, crustal flow in the region, northernmost portion of the Andean plateau lacks the magnitude of crustal shortening required to account for the modern crustal thickness. So basically what she's saying is if the crust is compressed and shortened, so that like imagine there's crust like this and then it folds over into more like this, then that fold is not thick enough. So there needs to be something else, and that suggests a crustal flow in the region, an undercurrent. And then something else with the something rare earth elements high, heavy rare earth elements depletion. Over the past 5 million radiometric dating suggests crustal thickening in the absence of crustal shortening over the same time period as surface uplift. So something to do with that there's crustal thickening going on when there's not even crustal shortening, which again is also with surface uplift, which again suggests crustal flow into this region undercurrents. Then she said, I didn't expect this when she started talking about this. I was like, this can't be related because the angel structure here, this is here, and then there's currents going down this way that are related to the central and southern Andes, but the northern Andes are related to this trident, so they're kind of like this area up here in a way is relatively unrelated to this area. At least there's different aspects to it, but then I started to think about it, I was like, oh, there's definitely a relationship. So that's she said though where did I write it? Manga something or other. Let me go back. I forget what this valley. It's something valley. Magdalena Valley. Magdalena. That one. This valley. And then that Altiplano. We see the same width of 400 to 500 kilometers for the regions of the Columbia Andes up here and Central Andes, where the Altiplano is. And I said, this makes me think of the flood currents interacting as well. So far we've only really considered undercurrents, but there's also flood currents. So like there's currents in North America like this. Close that. These currents, there's currents going up this way, there's current coming down this way, through this way, down along this boundary of this pink one. There's current coming down generally from north to south in North America to the Gulf. There's an eddy here, there's an eddy at the Hudson Bay. Some other currents. If we go to Europe, this one's pretty nicely detailed. There's a current coming out of the Hudson Bay. If we go here, it's coming out of the Hudson Bay this way and participating in the separation of Greenland and mainland North America. And down here, it runs into currents flowing this way across northern Africa, and it divides physically. So some of this current goes this way and swirls in over here, basically bubbles out, balloons out this space between North America and Africa, and in so doing, new ocean floor floods out from a separation point that fills in, while this current flows over here and just kind of grows and occupies this space, while another current flows in over here and does this, and these currents then like cut through South America and Africa and go down into this region and basically do the same thing over here. I haven't mapped out their exactness, although I do have some mapping, more so when the continents put it together, though, than the details of the ocean forming. But then the current divides this way, and so between them, the Azores Plateau forms here. This like triangular, arced triangular section, because the arc is the bending of the current, which goes into the Mediterranean. And there's current coming across this way into the Himalayas, related to Kaligandaki Gorge forming and the shalograms forming, but some of the current, a bulk of the current ends up going this way, and some of it goes up this way, but there's current flowing this way too, like from Azores and north, so some also up here. So that's what this is their interactions, is the current coming in the Mediterranean as this red current, which kind of pushes a boundary over here, goes underneath over here, and then goes over that way. And then currents coming from like the Himalayas, basically going westward, current going above it all, going eastward again. And the red and the purple interact here and produce a vortex, which then induces the structure of Greece as it is today, as well as the red goes under it, which creates like a deeper space in the Mediterranean here. So there's currents that are physically shaping the surface of the earth while these undercurrents are flowing. These are currents of water, whereas the undercurrents are more magmatic earth materials. But there's a current that flows, like we can follow this width right here and over here, that flows through here or through there, through this channel basically, at this like greatest eastward location, flowing through here, through here, through here, through this path, through here. Then it kind of separates a bit off that way, but it keeps going this way. Over here, separates some more, keeps going, separates some more, keeps going. Arcs in probably in relationship to the Hudson Bay. Like the pressures over here. Something maybe along that. Like a current flowing that way that pushes out the boundary a bit, so it bends this current. Then it keeps going through here, through here, through here, over here, where it bends, basically deflects this way. Like it hits a resistance of this eddy here, centered on Michigan, that bends it this way. And then it ends up going this way. So I mapped this before, and it didn't really occur to me until she said that. So if we go back here, I mapped it then going this way, and flowing around and flowing into Chicxulub, because that's what actually caused Chicxulub, and then flowing in this way and this way. But then it keeps going still. Over this way, there's current off of Africa, barely. Off of Africa coming over. So it's interacting. This current's going across. This current off of Africa is holding this boundary here, generally, while this other current off of North America runs into it and is forced this way. And at this point, I just drew it going this way and kind of merging with this greater current off of Africa, which goes that way. And then there's current off of Africa that reaches this corner and just kind of goes that way, while other currents go that way. And generally, everything off of South America starts to go eastward. I know it's kind of weird. It's upside down and all, but eastward. And interacts with currents over here that then spiral between Africa and South America, doing something like a circular or oval type of spiral. There's the Mediterranean little spiral and currents coming here, interacting this way. So there's both one going this way and going across, but essentially merging here to go across onto the top of South America. And then as this like builds up pressure, it basically participates in opening the ocean. So with all that said, essentially it occurred to me, well, she was saying this region has the same width as this region. I'm like, wait a minute. What if the current comes in this way and like hugs the wall here this way? Notice there's not an eastern, there's not like another mountain chain here. There's just the Andes, a singular Andes basically. There is over here, but besides here. So imagine it comes through this region and then kind of joins around where the currents coming off of Africa especially are able to merge with it, I guess, some reason. But then it keeps going and it overshoots this wall and cuts through this specific region and goes down this channel. Now we've got ourselves this channel. I realized there's a channel here, down through here, like going between this side and this side, through it, as well as some of it going along the outer edge of the Andes, through Cusco, of all places, which is somewhere around here, where notably it widens. Like it's relatively narrow here, but then as we approach here, it widens between the proper mountains over here and mountains over here, where there's an actual basin between, a plain between. as if a current is merging through here with this current and widening the space between, and then it keeps going. So it's almost like this current is what I drew here. Goes like, these are the pictures I showed, but then this one goes through here, divides there, and some of it goes this way, some of it goes in between the mountains that it participates in forming, of the western and the eastern Andes and the central Andes region. And then it continues to flow, but then it merges with itself over here at Cusco. This current that went along the boundary just merges in there and rejoins, and probably some from Africa as well. And it brings more water into this region, so it has essentially a similar width to down here, is kind of what I was thinking. So back to what she said, the width of deformation, this one and this one are similar widths. And then she pointed out this one has external drainage. So right now this region is significantly lower, where the Altiplano contains greater than 10 kilometers of basin fill. So imagine there's this current coming through this way, but it's kind of getting like stuck because there's mountains here, there's mountains here. So it's just a channel is going down, like a pushing material along with it, bringing material along with it, and just building a mound down here that gets taller and taller to the point where this region has 10 kilometers of basin fill, basically. Whereas down here, it doesn't have the current off of Africa. It's possibly even related to the materials coming off of Africa getting brought over there. I wonder if there's any. I definitely found that things like that with the Appalachians when I was doing this map. When I was doing this map, there's Appalachians, which is blue one, goes over here, goes over here. There's Appalachian materials all in the western United States, all over the place, and even like in Canada, like, but really far away from the Appalachians in a way that's like, how did they get there? I think the entire Colorado Plateau is composed of Appalachian materials in a substantial way, like at least layers of the Colorado Plateau are like Appalachian materials. There's a lot of Appalachian materials, Grenville orogeny and Appalachian over in the western United States. And from just like a plate tectonic framework, it's kind of like, what? But from a flood is occurring on an expanding earth framework where there's currents doing these things, transporting materials across the world, it makes more sense. So I'm just thinking maybe there's also materials from over here that got transported over here along that pathway. Probably even Appalachian. I wouldn't be surprised if there's Appalachian materials down here too. In all this like thick layer basin fill. So this one's internally drained, so it's kind of, I guess, interpreted to just be the surrounding Andes draining because we think in millions of years, draining materials. Water flow is just transporting materials into this basin, filling it. Mind you, this salt flats here, these are salt flats, which I already kind of addressed, so it makes more sense now where that water came from too. If there's water flowing this way that then goes down this channel and over here and kind of gets like ramps up, goes up to like some ramping area where it compounds all this material, but there's a lot of water too, And there's this undercurrent of flaming hot material below the crust that's boiling the water. It would probably create a salt flat in the region. So there's that. Let's go to the next one. This is a eclogite associated with crustal flow. Crustal thicknesses are large enough to generate eclogite beneath both regions. 55 kilometer thickness here, which is actually in the valley region. Where over here it's 70 in the valley region at Lake Titicaca, looks like. So the greatest crustal thickness is not even at the mountains themselves, but actually in the valley areas, specifically on the eastern side of the Colombian Andes, where, like, if there's a current flowing in this way and bending, like, it's not gonna accumulate the most material over here. It's gonna accumulate more over here. So there's gonna be a greater thickness along the eastern side, as well as that there's again an undercurrent from this region that goes up and over in the trident shape that cuts through here, pushing eastward. So it's gonna essentially accumulate into resistance again, which is just going to add more crustal thickness to further east than the western side. Would be my just initial, like, first order assessment of the situation. And then down here, I'm not sure why it would be the thickest there, honestly. There, I would expect it thickest elsewhere, although it may just be because the water had yet to boil, kind of thing. Like, the heat exchange was optimal here to cool off the magma, but then as the water heated up, it was more of a, like, evaporation of the water region over here that led to more of the water being removed and no longer able to heat exchange as much, so the undercurrents didn't solidify quite as much as they did over here. I don't know. Something like that maybe might have been at play. She further pointed out the greatest I just said that. Greatest crustal thickness in the Columbia is not where the mountains are, but near the Magdalena Valley, between the western and eastern Cordilleras. But specifically, she said near the edge of the eastern Cordillera. In these regions, the 55, which I exactly drew in the teal up here. Not so. I just circled them down there. Okay. I think we can go to this one, huh? Relatively flat slab subduction. So this is under plate tectonics framework, of course. North of this line, which is inferred to be a tear in the Nazca plate subduction at 5-6 degrees north. You've been so around this right area, there's some kind of tear in the under layer where south of this has steeper subduction. So imagine there's some kind of layers like this, and they were together, they tear, and the south is more steeply sloped, where the northern one is more flat I didn't really have a specific interpretation of why that might happen. It's certainly up where the water is coming onto North America or South America from North America. It's also very near, like in my Ancient Dwarka, The Secrets of Mount Gurnar video, I'd put a phi ratio here that wrapped around here. I don't know if it would be something to do with this, like having some boundary here. It looked more like east to west than like northeast, southwest trending. Yeah, so I'm not sure. Let's just keep going. Also, she said the region is not in isostatic balance. Like it's like a ice cube that you push down on, and then it floats back up and kind of finds an equilibrium. Like it's not stable. It's lifting back up or sinking down. I'm not sure. It's just not in balance. Also over here are depths, seismicity depths, so red, very deep. Very deep. It's almost like a fault, like strike slip. I don't know if that's. No, like this one, like this one. It's almost like that. Maybe it is strike slip. It's almost like that, whatever that's called. Why that would happen exactly, I mean, I would just at an initial guess, I would just attribute it to the trident structure of the angel. Like this is actual current flows that then tridently branch off to the side, and maybe it's related to like one of those. Like this here, I've associated with up here, but this was closer. So maybe it's, I wonder if it's probably not even parallel to that. I don't know if it would even, if it would be, even if it was though. I don't know. I just noted it. Let's keep going. Some final slides. So I just really just included these slides. Recipe for orogenic plateau development, comparison of Altiplano to Colombian Andes. Rift inversion. Internal drainage contributes to crustal thickening. Crustal thickness, lower crustal aggregate. I don't know. Yeah. I just included these at this point. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So this was from a different talk by someone else. I forget. Oh, this person. Oh my god.
250th birthday of Alexander von Humboldt. And
This person.
Impact by anthropogenic and by climate disturbance. In this talk, I will.
I think it was her. Yeah. I guess that's her. I don't know. But I link it, so feel free to check it out. But the point is, this whole 3-hour talk is actually about Alfred von Humboldt, who studied the area. I think that's his first name. In like the 1800s, and contributed to like earth sciences in general in a lot of ways. And he went to a specific mountain and documented where the vegetation was at like elevation wise, and where the glaciers began elevation wise in 1802. And someone went back in 2012 and they saw the same like documented things had shifted, so that the vegetation had moved upslope 500 meters. Physically the same, like certain vegetations that were at a certain elevation had moved upslope 500 meters, slowly shifting up the mountain, and the glaciers had retreated by 40% of the like height of the glacier, so it went up 40% in 210 years, which to me is like, modern science is like climate change and we must tax humanity. But the reality is what this shows is that radiometric dating is not valid. That's what it really shows. It shows that this process and all of the associated ones are much shorter timescales than we have realized in science, at least. We've definitely realized in other places, like those describing the flood. But this one, like, immediately gets associated with climate change, gets blamed on humanity, and like even global weather events, modern times, all of them get blamed on humanity, but they're all in a paradigm of plate tectonics, which is false. And radiometric dating, the interpretation of millions of years using radiometric dating, which is false, because the Earth expanded and basically radioactively decayed fractally, so it painted this picture of millions of years passing while the Earth was expanding, but really it was just during the global flood, which was only like on the magnitude of a year between like start and finish, when this process really occurred to make this mountain, to put water on top of it, which then froze, to then begin to have species on it, to then have someone in 1802 come along and look at it and see the mountain in that time after the flood, and then 200 years later someone to come along and say this has drastically changed, not because of humanity, but because we're in the wrong paradigm in terms of how we view the world we live in. If we view the world we live in through a false paradigm of plate tectonics, then everything else is going to be false. Is gonna be false too, including our interpretation of how we perceive this data. Okay, so there's that. And then this is another one. This one's far more like, okay, are humans involved in this one too? So I came across this today. It's called the Altiplano Puna magma body. So some may think that Yellowstone, if we go, what is the largest magma chamber in the world? Like, the first result, how big is the magma chamber under Yellowstone? This says Earth's outer core. Alright. That's not what I'm asking though. But like Yellowstone, that's not actually the answer though. The answer is the Altiplano Puna magma body in central Andes, which is near this thing, like here. It's like here. Is approximately 500,000 kilometers cubed of total volume. What is the volume? 48,000 cubic kilometers Yellowstone. 500,000. 10 times the volume of Yellowstone, making it the largest known active magma body on Earth. That sounds pretty substantial. Like, I wonder what could have done that. Oh yeah, an undercurrent flowing this way. So that's comes back to this. So there's these little like puncture points or pressure points where current flowed into. It's like notches, rungs on a ladder, like lifting the ladder up and making the ladder longer. It gets caught on different rungs. These are different rungs as the earth expanded. The flame pressure flowed into. And then down here is where the Altiplano is. It's not here at the last one. It's actually here where there's space for it, because this is like a void of dense, hard, cold material. This is a like dense, hard, cold material besides this. This is a relative void where hot magma chamber, a magma chamber could be like occupying the space and be filled by a flame of current flowing down here. Notice there's even like a little bend right here. Like it doesn't go quite straight. It actually bends off like it's going into here. And then it's got like a shallogram shape. It's got like a chakra here. Maybe even like a chakra there. And then like a lobe. Maybe like a nucleus type thing there. Another chakra down here. Another lobe over here. So it's got quite the shallogram shape. I mean, we can't see all the data, but this region is where it's at. And then let's play this.
And this signal has been observed for over 20 years now, and there's another study that tracks the point of maximum uplift, so here the center, tracks it over time, and we can see that the velocities are slightly decreasing over time, and we also want to try to answer the question why that is.
So, let me just go back and pull it up. Oh yeah, I'll overtop it again. So, the uplift above this largest magma chamber on the planet, the uplift of the terrain above is measured over the course of time of the last, at least since like 1990-ish. And it has slowed down recently. Think about that for a second and how that makes sense in a plate tectonic framework where things like on this scale, millions of years would make more sense for this slowdown. 5 years only makes sense if this was deposited rapidly during an Earth's expansion process of the flood. This is on the same type of observation as the change in the glaciers over 200 years on the mountain and the change in the position of vegetation on the mountain in the last 200 years. It's the same type of oddity that can not really be explained by modern paradigms and only really makes sense when we realize the time scale of these things is not as we have interpreted them, and radiometric dating is not flawless. Certainly it works for relative ages and would work for absolute ages if we accounted for all things, but we're not accounting for that the Earth expanded and that it was basically, again, like a radioactive decay of the Earth. I'm like center now, front and center. What up, dudes? What up, dudes? So I just said, this is strong evidence that radiometric dating methods are not accounting for significant details that make the ages they suggest to be, the ages they suggest to be utterly false. They're just not true, indicating a much shorter timescale of the formation and subsequent measured effects of the Altiplano Puna magma body. Simple as that, really. So another really cool thing in the Andes. There it is. There's its outline. This is from a Geology Hub video, which I'll link all this stuff. That just really fits what I've been saying. Which is pretty important. It fits what I'm saying, at least like with a little wiggle room and like working out the nuances. Like obviously, like for instance, a good example would be Romer. Like Newton didn't know the speed of light was not infinite, and Newtonian physics didn't account for it. That doesn't mean Newtonian physics was false. That just means there were nuances unaccounted for. Romer observed the orbit of the moons of Jupiter and noticed they did not match the expectations of when we would expect to see them according to Newton's laws, and he determined, well, we're missing some detail. Rather than just abandoning natural philosophy, which is what Newton's laws really are, is the culmination of natural philosophy. Rather than abandoning logic and reason, he used logic and reason to deduce that the speed of light was not infinite, and calculated in 1676 the speed of light to not that's modern. Where is it? To 212,000. Modern is basically 300,000. So he calculated it quite close to modern, although sometimes I wonder if there's some other details like similar to the changes since Humboldt. Like there's an actual observational difference between now and then. Maybe there is also one when he was looking at the moons of Jupiter in terms of what the speed of light was then, where there's some other details out there that influence these things in ways that I don't know, or is just too much of an approximation. Like the data is too much. There's a big error bar there that really maybe reaches into this range because it's based on observations of moons of Jupiter in 1676. I mean, Io. I guess it's when the eclipses were expected versus when they were observed was slightly different. I don't know the exact details. Pardon me. All I know is it didn't match expectation, and it was just a matter of reasoning out the nuances. Same for what I'm saying. Even when it doesn't match what I've already said, doesn't mean like everything is false. It just means there's some nuances there. Okay, dudes, I'm gonna stop this video now. This is long enough. I might record another one. I've been kind of not feeling like it. But I just keep looking at stuff. It's not, I've been researching, I just haven't been feeling like making posts of videos, recording. It's like, as my catalog of videos and research gets more and more, it's just like, it's harder to do it. It's almost like making money. The more money I make, the less I care to make money. The more research I do proving something, the less I care to keep proving something. I mean, I just don't. The only reason to keep doing it is how else am I gonna pop off? Like, sooner, it's gotta be a new video. It's not gonna be like some old video that suddenly gets recognition. I don't think, even though some of them are worthy, a lot of them, certainly some of them are good enough where they could single-handedly do that. Like Earth's Undercurrents, or the Dwarka one, or my Theory of Everything video even, I guess. There's so many possibilities, but realistically, like my channel just dies if I'm not making videos. Because it's so low view count that the only way to really like bring life to it is to post new content. So I'm in a kind of conundrum where I'm like, I guess I should make new videos. Keep going. Alright, I'll shut up there. See you guys next one. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate your time and listening and hearing me out. Till next time. Peace.